What up? Welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones, and in this one, we're gonna take a look at the repaint that I did for the McFarlane DC Multiverse Last Night on Earth Straight Jacket Batman figure. Now, on this side, we have the original unaltered release, and on this side we have my repainted version. Now at first, just to look at it, you might think there's not really a big difference, but I did do some modifications to the accessories, and then there's a lot of attention to detail on the actual repainting of the figure. So of course this comes from the Last Night on Earth wave from the Multiverse. You have various other figures on there. Now I do have to say one thing, and that was that since this is a figure that we never really expected or saw coming, now that I know more about the storyline and I've seen images and then working on this figure for the last couple weeks, I really come to appreciate this figure. Like just the uniqueness, the sculpt work. Of course, it was lacking some paint details. That's why we're here. But the more I worked on it, the more I really started to like this figure. Love having him in the collection. And this is something that you have to fight your first instinct, which is to not like this figure because you don't know anything about it, and it looks weird. But it's a cool release from an actual storyline from the DC Comics, and it's a really cool figure. So let's go ahead and start with the accessories, and that's going to be that I did make a video on how to make a lantern Joker. And that is because the lantern that comes originally with the figure has like a certain Joker head inside of it. And of course, when I made that Joker, I modified this one, and I actually put the White Knight head inside here, and it does look pretty cool. That if you look at the comics, the Joker looks kind of maniacal or like really crazy, and this one just doesn't really match the comic. But this one, not completely, but it has a little bit more characteristics of the comic one. So this will be this Batman's lantern, and then of course I'll have this with the original release. And then another thing I did is this is the original little Billy Club that comes with the Batman. Now, it's just solid black. I mean, there's a lot of cool little texturing in there or like sculpt work, but you can't really see it because it's just like a flat black piece that goes with this guy. But what I did is looking up and referencing the comic, there is a couple scenes where Batman escapes from the Arkham Asylum, and if you look at it real close, the batons actually have like gray grips, and then they have like a little strap. And that's really how a Billy Club works. You stick your hand in that strap so that you don't lose it, and wrap it around your wrist, and then you grab onto the end, and that's what you attack with. Now, you might wonder, well, how did you make this little strap? Well, surprisingly enough, when you get these figures, you get like these little rubber bands, clear ones, and I just carefully cut around the plastic so that I wouldn't snap it, and then took it out and then cut it to length. And it has just enough thickness to where it's not like a string, but it has a little bit of width to it. So then I drilled a hole down into the bottom of the club, and then I put some glue in there, and I slid both ends at the same time, and it left this cool little loop on there. So with the same gray that I painted on the handle, I painted up the little loop and then sealed it so that the paint doesn't come off, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it adds some modification to billy club, and it just gives it a little bit more character. Now, you do have to seal these. If you don't seal it after you paint it, it'll just rub. When you stick it inside the hand or even inside the holster on his belt, it'll rub all the paint off. But if you seal it like I did this one, you'll see that the paint does not rub off. And it's a pretty cool little added feature to the billy club. And that this one will go with my repainted version. Now let me look at him and tell you a little bit of the stuff I did do with him. Now, starting off with the head, of course, like most of my customs or my repaints, I removed the head and then dremeled out the peg, because if you look at your original release, he does not look up pretty much at all. He just looks straight forward. He will look down, but he will not look up. So I popped off the head and put a little notch in the porthole, and now this guy looks like really far. Not all the way up, but he looks way more than before. And that just gives you a little bit more where you could give him some character, looking up, and gives him a little bit more, gives you more variety in how you want to put the head. So that was pretty cool. Then all over the straitjacket, wherever there was like a little rip or like where they stitched in, I just added a real light, dabbing of like a lighter tan color than what the actual straitjacket is. So it's hard to tell by looking at it, but if you were to have it in hand, you could actually see how all the stitching and all the little cuts, all the little frails have a little bit of lighter paint on it, which it came out looking pretty good. Now, one of the main differences that actually took me a long time was pretty much a lot of the buckles were not painted in silver. So, of course, I did the buckles that were around his waist, and then I did the belt buckle. And then I did all the buttons, because if you look around his waist, he has buttons. And even in the back, if you lift up these like straps, he has buttons back on his back. And then I actually painted the buckles on the straps in the back on both sides, front and back, and then I sealed them. That way that the paint holds up a little bit better. And then pretty much the buckles on the gauntlets had non-existent paint, so I went ahead and filled those in, and it really helps them to pop. And when you look at them now, you could really see those buckles on the gauntlets. Another thing I did was I actually painted in the pinholes that were like off color. They were a little bit like the straitjacket color, like off-white, and I painted them in the top, and in the back you could see I painted in the pins. That way they match a little bit more with the like leather texture color of the straps that he used to make up the gauntlets. Now, he did attach some shards of glass to his gauntlets, and of course those had no paint at all. And figuring this out, like trying to figure out which color I wanted to paint them, I actually found a different color, a different paint, and it's pearl white. Now that pearl white, it's not really silver, even though it kind of looks silver. But if you were to look at it, it has like real hints of blue and a little bit of like purple. Like it looks crazy when you move it in the light. It just has different colors like swirling inside like pearl. Or like oyster shell, I guess you could say. But it came out really, really cool. I really loved that paint. I hope I get to use it somewhere else, because it's really nice. Not so much a silver or a white, but more like a in between those two colors. Now, another thing I did that I don't usually do is I made it like a little wash, and I did a wash to the whole belt all the way around. And it came out pretty good. I don't really do washes that much, but I got like a little bit more comfortable doing it. And you can see the darkness like on the tops of the belt, of the pouches, and on the sides of the pouches, just to give it some contrast and some depth, so it doesn't look just one flat plastic, which is how it came in the original release. And then one of the final things I did was at the bottom, I did paint in silver all the rivets and the little eyelet holes for the boots, just to give it a little bit of pop, since they were like solid black. Painted in all those little, like, they should be metal parts. So came out pretty awesome. I'm really happy with them. Like I said, I came to appreciate this figure a lot more because of having to work on them. I will be putting my repaint with the club in his hand and then the lantern in his hand, and then I will be putting in, on the original release, I will be putting the club in his belt actually, and then I'll be putting in the lantern in his hand. So these will be going up there on my McFarlane shelf. Pretty happy with it. Now, I did do Wonder Woman, and I'm working on Omega from the same wave, doing some repaints and some different things to them just to make them look a little bit cooler. But I'll be coming up with those soon. So stay safe out there, keep collecting, and I will see you on the next one.